Hello guys, today we will have another Laravel code review on this channel, a little bit untypical, a review of a job interview task performed by the person who emailed me. So that person got feedback negative on the task for the job interview, and we will review both the code of that person, the task, and how I would perform the task. The task is this. You can pause the video and read it all, but I will summarize it for you. Basically, price checkout system with this structure. It's a PHP task. It's not necessarily Laravel, but that coder decided to use Laravel because it was allowed. As you can see in the interview, they say you can use any framework, and also limitation, an hour for this test. This is, by the way, important because quite often I see in the job interviews, they give tasks with really limited time in order not to test how you perform the task itself, but how much you can achieve and how you think and how you choose the shortcuts for something. Because usually, or quite often, it is impossible to perform a really well done project in limited time like an hour. So anyway, we have the limit of an hour, and we need to implement something like this checkout system with some extra rules. The rules are: if you buy 3 or more of one product, the price is different. If you buy 1 fruit tea, you get 1 more free, and maybe a few more rules. And there's even test data at the end to test the situations. And the task is to implement a checkout system. It doesn't say anything about design, it doesn't say anything about how to structure the code, so it's kind of a free thinking task. Now let's see how that developer performed the task. I have cloned the repo attached, and this is the result. So it's a website, web page, where you can actually add something to cart. So you can add a fruit tea, you can add a strawberry, you can add more fruit tea. It calculates the balance, then you can view cart, and then you can remove items from here. Are you sure? Okay, you continue shopping, and the price is calculated here from what I understand. And this is my first thing I immediately asked to myself. The task didn't require to build a website with full design, with products, with photos, with cards on a separate page. I think if the task says 1 hour limit, I think they expect you to do something really minimal without fancy things like this icon for the card or these photos which represent actually strawberry or tea or coffee. And I understand that that developer wants to overachieve and over-deliver, and that is fine, but the task wasn't about the website. The task was to implement the system. If we take a look at it again, this was the actual task, the implementation of this interface. But okay, maybe they over-engineered for the right reasons. Let's take a look at the code. And there's a good README written, well, great. And in routes web, I usually start with routes. We have product controller index, and what does it say? We get all the products, and by the way, great thing that there are seeders, product seeder for the product table. Good. So in the product controller, we get all the products and we get all the cart. Cart is another object, another eloquent model, another database table. We get the quantity and total and pass that to the welcome, and that welcome blade contains all the products. So on top we have for each of the products, those images, prices, and then on the right hand side, well, first you have add to cart with the form of cart store. And then on the right side, you can go to cart and it's calculated the total amount. And then there are 2 more lines in the routes web, route resource for the cart, but it doesn't make much sense to me to use route resource where you actually use 2 methods. So route resource accept all those methods instead of having 2 routes for cart index and cart store. And also cart delete should not be route get, it should be route post for deleting with are you sure confirmation, but it works. Let's take a look inside of the cart controller, what it does. First, the store method. So we store from the request, we validate. So we validate the quantity, but we don't validate product ID. Interesting. Or actually, we do validate the product from find or fail, so it would throw 404 error. Okay, and how do we calculate the price? That's the essence of the task, to calculate the price. So we calculate it immediately when adding the product. Okay, maybe. Then for this structure cart where product ID first, I would use eloquent function called first or create, something like that. Then you don't have to have if statement here, but okay. So we create the cart or update the cart, right? And there's nothing here about any calculations of those extra conditions in the original task, so these ones are not mentioned anywhere here. We just save the cart. And if you want to delete the cart, it's just find or fail delete. Okay-ish. And now where are the calculations of that extra logic? So where is something like scan or total or something like that? And where are those rules? They are actually when viewing the cart. In the cart index, we have get all the items. These are variables which are not actually even used, so they are probably temporary and forgot to delete. And then for each of the items, if that's a second product, then we apply price policy fruit T and save. So we update the total price of every item on the viewing of the checkout. I'm not actually sure if it's correct, because when I'm shopping online, for example, I would like to view the discount before I click the checkout button or view cart. I'm quite used for discount to be applied automatically when scanning the product, and even at the checkout in the mall, in the shop, when scanning the item, the discount is kind of already there calculated. So I don't think that's correct approach, but it does work. Now, what is price policy fruit T? Those are methods in the cart model, but how do they work? So if the product code is this, then we apply the discount and save, but didn't we actually check already that the product ID is 2? Why do we have to check the product code again? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe there's a logic here. Also a variable that isn't used. And similarly, price policy fruit T, more logic around FR1 and calculating the total price. So yeah, these are the calculations. What are my overall comments over this code? Some small details around routing and Eloquent are not optimized and could be improved, but that's kind of okay depending on the position, on the seniority of the position they apply to. But the task wasn't about Laravel, the task was about PHP. And I think the main reason why the interview failed for that person is that they didn't implement the actual task they were asked for. So original task is this interface. It doesn't say, again, it doesn't say anything about website, about design. All they needed to do is implement this checkout. It could be Laravel, but that checkout interface or checkout class should have existed with method scan of the item. You may say that it's similar to cart controller store method, this one, store, but it doesn't actually return the total. The total is returned only later. And also what is more important, I think, there are no tests here. So this is the task perfectly suitable for TDD implementation. So first you write test and you have exactly 3 tests what are expected from you. And then you implement some kind of class or service for the checkout and you make those tests pass. That was the task. On top of that, if you have time or if you have willingness, you should have implemented the checkout process on the web with using that service class. And let's actually try to do that. So we will go with classical TDD, test-driven development approach. First, we generate the test, make test, checkout test, and it should be a unit test because we're not testing a feature, so we won't actually do anything on the web or on the feature. We will give the unit the parameter of checkout item and then test the result. So in tests unit, we now have checkout test, and we will implement all 3 methods that are listed here. So test checkout 1, for example. Checkout 1. First, we create the checkout. Actually, let's copy one by one. It should be almost identical. So new checkout, and none of that exists yet. That's the point of TDD. First, we write test what we expect, and we assert this. Assert equals CO total to 2245, like this. So this is our test. For now, it will totally fail. So let's delete some feature tests here, an example test here. We have only checkout test, and if we run PHP artisan test now, it will fail. Oh, now because test feature not found, let's open PHP unit XML file, and let's remove the feature tests at all, like they don't exist. And now PHP artisan test unit checkout not found. That's exactly what we expected. Now, what will be our checkout object? And let's create it as a simple PHP class and call it a service. Service is basically any PHP class in Laravel. So we create a folder in app called services, And then in the services, let's generate new file, checkout service PHP. And then inside we have namespace of app services and class checkout service. That's it. So we do have that class now, and then in the test, instead of checkout, we do checkout service. It's automatically generated in the use by PHP Storm, and if we launch our test now, PHP Artisan test, we have another error, undefined variable pricing rules. And step by step we will create the functionality. So basically this code review is a lesson on TDD, on test-driven development, also tying that with the previous code that developer has actually written. So let's continue. We have pricing rules. What should be the structure of pricing rules? And I think that was the core task of this whole job interview, to come up with some kind of flexible structure, because the task says that CEO and CO change their minds often. It needs to be flexible regarding our pricing rules, which means you would be able to add more rules, more products in the future. So pricing rules needs to be some kind of array. For example, array of rules, which would be, for example, for some product code, for example, CF1 for the coffee, the rule would be multiply, called multiply, and that would be the method inside of checkout service. And you can do it in a different way. For now, let's try to make it as a method. So actually, let's take the actual example. Fruit tea with FR1 should be get one free. Then strawberries, which is SR1, would be 3 or more, price drop to 450. So for example, it could be bulk discount. And let's actually come up with some kind of parameters. So it's even an array. For example, method name, and then there will be parameters, bulk discount on how many, so 3 items, and price drop to 450. Okay, so we have array of pricing rules. For now it's not implemented, but we pass that here. Now we need to accept that in the service. So we have private pricing rules, and then public function constructor of that. Checkout service accepts pricing rules and then assigns that like this. So we have an array of pricing rules inside of that checkout service. If we launch the test again, it will be another error of undefined method scan. So let's define that. In the checkout service, we define the method public function scan of item, and the item is just item code. We could use item ID, but probably the original job description assumes that product code is a unique identifier. So item is a string. We can actually even specify that as a string. And then to do of add item. And we don't need the quantity here because, as usual, checkout is just scan, scan, scan one by one. And this is exactly what is implemented here. So we implemented that, and our PHP Artisan test now shows undefined variable item. And the item in this first case is the original this, fr, swr, so this sequence. Let's copy it one by one. So fr1 would be the first to scan, and then it would be sr1. Duplicate, 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 so fr1 again, and cf1 again. So that's the first test, and we should actually even add that as a comment here. What are we testing? So example scan like this. Next error, PHP Artisan test, undefined property total. Total should be a property of that service, not even a method. So it should be public of total, which is 0 by default, let's put it this way. And then at the end of the scan, we need to define the total by some new rules. So for example, for now, let's add that to 0, and then it will make the test actually running but failing, not from the syntax perspective, but already from the logic perspective. Failed asserting that 0 matches 2245. And the next step is to actually make it 2245. Okay, now what should happen in the scan method? We need to find the product by that item code. So we do exactly that, and this is where we use Eloquent now. So product equals product where product code equals item first. If we find that product, It shouldn't be something like find or fail in the service. If we don't find the product, we could potentially throw an exception, or we just don't do any calculations and don't add anything. So if the product is found, we need to add that to cart and recalculate this total, like this. So this should be some kind of variable. To add that product to cart, there are multiple ways how you can do that, but let's stick to the original idea of the developer to add that to the database. And in the cart's database table, we have product ID, quantity, price, and total. In my opinion, price and total should not be here. It should be calculated. So let's save only product ID and quantity. Or not even that, we don't actually need the quantity. The column default is 1. So let's just add product by product. If product, we just add that to cart. Cart create product ID equals product ID, and we'll have multiple rows of the same product, and that's fine. And then for this total, we will have a private function of recalculating the cart. Private function get total, like this. And this total will be this get total. And let's return 0 for now. And this get total will be, I would like it to be in some kind of structure as array of fr1 is 1 item, for example, like cr1 is 2 items and stuff like that. I actually do that a lot of times. I do the comments before I write the actual code. So get the total should be in this array, and then we will apply the pricing rules according to that array product codes. So cart products will be equal cart with product get, so we get all the cart, and then let's add the grouping. So select of, or select row actually, select row products product code. Let's make it more readable, and then sum of quantity from the cart, actually cart's quantity, get should be before, and then we group by products product code. And I think that's it. Actually, let's dd cart product and see the result. We run the test again. Oh, we don't have the connection to the database from our checkout test. And this is exactly what is described in the PHP unit XML. We uncomment those 2 lines, and those should be okay. So we will use SQLite memory database for the tests. And also we need to make some changes in the test itself, in the preparation of the test, to use the database. For the simplicity and for the convenience, let's extend tests test case, which comes with Laravel. It's not default PHP unit, but more Laravel related test. And then we can use refresh database. It's a trait that refreshes the database in SQLite memory. And also we need to see the products. So for that, we have a function of setup the test, which first need to call parent setup for all the tests, and also we need to return void here. We can call the seed command by doing artisan call db seed, like this. And now if we run our test again, we run the test, no such column product code. Oh, of course, because the query doesn't really join the product. Join, I think we don't even need that relation actually with product. Join products on cart's product ID. Like this. We don't need these signs. Actually, we do. Let's actually do another thing. So query, and then we join. Let's try to do that again. And we have DD. That is great. So we have product code and sum. And just instead of sum, we have quantity. So we have cart products now. And then for each of those products, like actually total equals 0. And then for each of cart products as product, actually we do need the product price here. So select row product code, products price, and then sum. Group by products code and then products price. And then we can calculate total plus product quantity times product price. And later we will use product code to actually calculate the discounts. So for now we have total and return total, like this. Hope I didn't miss anything. Let's launch that again. Artisan test. No such column, products, price. What is the actual column? Price. We do have the price. So why is that? And of course it should be grouped by raw as well. Let's try again. And we have 2556. We have some kind of calculation. Great. So that's already an achievement, believe it or not. And let's actually debug it by using info for product quantity and product price and see what we actually have inside of those variables. Like this. Info means that it will be written in Laravel log file. So if we launch that again, the test, let's see why it is 2556. We open Laravel log. Okay, and we have 311, 5, 311, probably exactly as we wanted. For the clarity, let's add another info at the end. So each time we launch that, adding to cart, we will recalculate that. So let's run the test again. Open our Laravel log. Of course, I forgot the product code, so that is important. What product code we have? Product code. Like this. Let's try again. And now in Laravel log, we should have something like this. So, is FR1 with this, then this one, then 2 items, 3 items, and total 5 items. So this is correct. And the sum of all of that is actually the price. The original price should have been 25.56, but after applying the discount, it should be 22.45. Let's try to apply the discounts. So this is where we have those pricing rules now in place. Remember, we have the pricing rules as this array. So let's actually copy and paste it as a comment, and we will view them and do for each of them. So those are pricing rules. I will comment it out just to see them visually. Do we have a pricing rule for this particular product? Rule equals this pricing rules of product code, like this. Or null. If is not null, the rule, then it's array, right? So then we need to calculate the total not by this, but by other function, which would be, for example, total equals this, and then there will be a function called, for example, get one free here. So let's create that private function get one free. But the function name will be dynamic. So this rule 0, maybe with parameters. So we should probably get the parameters anyway with rule 1 and rule 2 probably, and we will get them in here. It should be probably more flexible as parameters, but null and null. But for limited amount, I won't make it more flexible. Let's stick to this one. So we are calling that function, which is returning, for now let's make it the same. So return product quantity and product price. So we pass the product and then rule 1, rule 2, for example, parameter, and we return. For now we don't use rule 1 and rule 2. I'm actually surprised how complex it gets, but anyway, that should work. Or let's try it out actually, I'm not sure at this point. Artisan test. Too few arguments to the function get one free. Of course, we need to pass the product because I've made it so. So artisan test, bulk discount. Oh, of course, we defined bulk discount as a feature, as a function, but we didn't implement that. So bulk discount. For now, the rules will be the same. So if it's not null, the rule, else, if there's no rule, then we calculate the total usually. Now let's run that. Failed asserting that 5 matches 22.45. That's interesting. Oh, of course, because it's not 5, it's total plus. So it's total for all products. Forgot that one. Artisan test, and we should be back at 25.56. Great. And now we can implement those get one free and bulk discount. So the original rules of get one free, buy one, get one free means that if there is a fruit tea, you get every second item for free. So we need to calculate the actual quantity, which would be product quantity divided by 2. So it's floor of quantity plus maybe we have product quantity divided by 2, and what is the leftover? I'm not sure if it's the correct English word. And now let's change that quantity to here. So basically, if the quantity is 3, for example, you will pay for one product plus one product. If the quantity is 2, you get paid for one product plus 0 product. So for one product only. And let's refresh that. And we have a passing test, guys. So our 2245 is exactly what we expected. So get one free test is finally passing. So now we need to implement other 2 tests. So test checkout 1, let's copy and paste that into another checkout service. Or actually, let's make it in the same method. Assert equals. So we create another checkout service with the same rules and the scan is different. So FR1, like this. And the result should be 311. And that should actually pass as well. Let's try it out. We should have 2 passing tests. No, it's failing. Why? Oh, because we don't clear the card. So yeah, it should be a different method. So in every method, it's clearing the database. And pricing rule should be probably some kind of a property of the test, but let's leave it this way for now. And let's run that again. We have 2 passing tests, guys. And then we add the third one, actually FR1. Bad example. Like this. And test checkout 3 will be SR1, like this. FR1, like this. And the expected result is 1661. And that should probably fail. 1811 is the actual price because we add 3, 4, 5 and then this one. But if we buy 3 or more strawberries, the price should drop to 450. And here's where we will use those parameters. So rule 1 and rule 2. So bulk discount will actually be if product quantity is bigger or equal to rule 1, then price equals rule 2. Something like this. By default, price will be equal to product price, but otherwise it is different, and we calculate that by price, and we run our test again, and we have successfully succeeded all 3 tests now, finally. So by this point, the video took much longer than I expected just to make those tests pass. But actually, I think the job description was exactly that, passing tests from the service. And now you can use that service in any controller, for example, in cart controller or in product controller here in the store method. By doing checkout service, so new checkout service, scan, request product ID, like this, and don't care about anything else. And whenever you need the total, you get that total. But you get the idea. You have the service, which makes the calculations. You have the tests that are covering all the cases. And then you can safely use that service in controller or wherever. That's the main idea of test-driven development. You have the tests. First they fail, then you make them succeed, then you implement the actual code. And I think this approach of TDD would have gotten the job for that developer. And now, as a final part of this video, let's actually implement that service. Of course, it should not be product ID, it should be product code. And by the way, I'm shooting this part the next day from the other TDD because I was too tired after fighting the tests and making them work. So now let's implement that. And without that fancy design, I will just scrap that. And since the job description was to implement the checkout process, it doesn't say anything about design. Let's create a new home page. PHP artisan make controller home controller or something like that. And then we can use, instead of that get, we will use our home controller index with the name home. So comment that out. And in our home controller index, we have a method of index. And we have products equals product all. So we do need all the products. Return view home, for example, with the products. Okay, and that view home will be a simple HTML file without any design. Because remember, the original task was 1 hour, so we need to implement the backend logic with the test, which we already did. And now we need to show something on the homepage, how it works. It's kind of similar like a test, just without artisan test, it would be a visual test. So just HTML, body, we could even skip that. And then for each of the products, we show the product in a list like this. So we have a list of products, product name, and product price. Like this. Let's try to launch our homepage. Okay, we have coffee, fruit, tea, and strawberry. I will zoom it in a lot. And instead of price, let's do number format with comma 2 and with $, like this. Okay, then we need what? We need the scan method. So we need a link for every product. We need a link to scan that product. And this is exactly what we will do. So we will have some kind of a route of scan with product ID. Or actually not even product ID, product code. Product code, scan, and then let's create the route scan, duplicate that, scan. Let's reuse the same home controller. It could be a form, it could be actually a post request to the scan, but let's keep it simple. Name scan, and we need to add a parameter, scan of what? Product code, like this. We refresh and we have the scan links. Good. And then in the home controller scan, we need to implement public function scan, product code. What we do here? Will you guess? New checkout service. We just create a new object, scan of product code. And then we need the pricing rules. So let's copy those from the test. Pricing rules are these. And for now, let's put them inside of the scan, but in fact, there should be some kind of config or some kind of database structure even for the rules to make them flexible and add more in the future. So they shouldn't be in different places. There should be in one place in config. But again, we're strict on the time, 1 hour, right? So we scan the product and then we redirect where? Redirect to home probably. Return, redirect to route home. And in our home, let's also view the total price. So after that list, let's put total $, and then we do what? Total price, right? And how do we calculate that total price? We have the same checkout service, but not scan. We need the total. So total equals total. And even here I see we repeat the same pricing rules. So let's move them at least outside of the function as a property. So public pricing rules, and then it will be at least in the controller, in the config of the controller. So this pricing rules and this pricing rules. Or maybe it could even be inside of the service as the private service property or something like that. As usual in the coding, there are multiple ways how to do the same thing. So we have our total. And we view our total with, actually total price it is called, so total price and total price. And also we do number format like this, price 2. And let's launch our homepage again and let's scan something. We scan, it didn't do anything. Why? Okay, now I see a bit flaw in our implementation, but we won't fix it too much. So basically we're doing the scan and we're returning total only on the scan. So we don't have a total outside of it. And since we're doing the scan on different pages, so scan is one service object and index is another service object, it doesn't save the total. So instead of this implementation, we should make public method of get total, and then it will calculate the cart. And we should call that as get total, like this. And now let's see our cart. We have something. We scan. It's probably a free tea. Let's click again. Now it's not free. Click again. It doesn't change. Click again. Now we pay for the tea. So it's implementation of actually discounts. And for the strawberry, let's see the price difference. $5, $5, $4.50. So that works as well. Great, so finally that would be my result of doing this task. So again, tests, service, and then implementing that service from the controllers on the web. Of course, it's not ideal. Of course, maybe it should be differently structured in terms of How do we assign pricing rules? Maybe not in the constructor. Also, how we publish the total. Also, in the real eShop, there should be some kind of user ID or session ID because it's calculating now all the cards, not for a specific user. But again, within 1 hour, that's as much as we can achieve. And again, I think that this implementation would have more chance for that developer who emailed me to get the job position. What do you think, guys? Anything you would add? Any criticism is welcome because I'm a human too. I maybe made a mistake. I may be not ideal in my coding. I'm teaching what I learn and from my experience, but I do accept your comments and your criticism, so be active in the comments. I will not publish this as a repository because that's a repository not of my own. It's from that developer. But I think you got the idea just by watching all this video. And if you watched it until the end, thank you. And if you want to thank me for shooting this long video in 2 days, you can support my mission of daily videos on this YouTube channel by checking out one of the 3 products you can see on the screen: Quick Admin Panel Generator for Admin Panel, Livewire Kit set of components, and one of my currently 19 courses on Teachable. That's it for this time. See you guys in other videos.